people, welcome to Blue UK Jazz Dance in the Blue Lab. A few people said they loved the Blue Lab, they like to know what the Blue Lab. This is a Blue Lab, this is the space where I do my research, and this is where I'm doing my longest project and a number of different projects as I go along as an individual. Here, this is I'm writing on the Blue Lab now. It's the first time I'm going to give people an understanding to the Blue Lab. Blue Lab was created because African diaspora people didn't have spaces or places where they could develop their social dancing out of scrutiny. Place of peace. Basically it's a creative hub where I do a lot of things, meditate, where I come and train, I read, I research, I look now, amazingly, I can look on the web 24/7 without scrutiny from individuals. Basically it's a place of sanctuary that I created. And the Blue Labs are indoor and outdoor because I have a laptop now, and basically a lot of my research is basically visual, looking at UK jazz dance around the world, indicating to people that this dance is significant, and I can show you globally what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Japan, what's happening in Korea, what's happening in the United States due to UK jazz dance, which has been identified as insignificant. People need to understand. I want to share with people, I use my lab as a way to document, journal what I go through. As an individual, I'm looking at my, oh, can I see it? Can I bring it? Let's have a look. Okay. Okay, this is me at the moment, and I'm looking at, boom, let's see, can I get that? This is my mobile. I'm going to read in from it, and it's amazing. I look at information and I really look at it. So basically I'm looking at some information on my mobile and I like it. It talks about, basically it's talking about up to settings in your mobile, but it's related to performance. Performance improvements are exciting features on iPhone and iPad. One of the key things I talk about, UK jazz dance changed performance skills. How people prepare the performing and the post-performance, because a lot of the performances, the highest level performances, took place at all days and all-nighters and at weekenders, and people know. But a lot of the training, 99% of all the training, took place in our homes and other people's homes away from the city, which is important, because what's happened is the key players in the city have been Caucasians. They've identified without them this UK jazz dance wouldn't happen. Well, we had an underground jazz dance scene before we were born. Before the 48, before Windrush came, before the war came, there was an underground jazz dance scene in Britain that was already here within the black community, and people got that. So it's important for people to have understanding. So I'm looking at my phone, and what happens, it talked about we brought new expressions, self-expression. We brought new fun through the dance, new ways to enjoy ourselves. We brought new leisure. That's how significant it is. Basically, this dance was a dance of resistance, first of all. There's no dance of African diaspora, West Indians, that is not a dance of resistance. If you have to understand the history of our slavery, it tells you that. Basically, we've not been a free people. Today, we're dying younger than anybody else in the UK. We're 5% of black and Asian minority groups. We're a small, minuscule of people in the creative culture industries because we've been blocked. And one of the key things was UK jazz dance is supposed to have been known around the world globally. But in 1986, when basically the turning point for the dance in a film, the three best dance groups were debased, and by 88 basically our dance had been lost. And what happened was war infractions between North, South and Midlands contributed to what the styles I do, soul jazz and Latin jazz, been lost, because what was being promoted by Western DJs, Western society, that the dancers were gay because they did ballet. It's such a nonsense. When did dancers dance together? Males dance together. Historically, males dancers that dance together, particularly warriors. And what happened was stigmatization, labeling was spread. So people went away from the dance and it took up fusion. What's fusion? From London, and footwork. Happened in Manchester, happened all over the country, because people had spread this dance, what is called ballet contemporary style, is gay. The Latin jazz, the mambo jazz that the JDs does is gay. And it wasn't. Individuals, if you know anything about dance, you know that warriors, males dance with males. This is one of the key things that was being spread by Caucasians. Look at these males dancing with each other. When do males dance with each other? Well, you got Cossacks, Just think about that for a moment. The most explosive dance you ever could see. Yeah? Tap dancers dance with each other. It's important for people to have an understanding of what I'm saying in this room today. Anyway, Blue UK Jazz Dance, I'm just giving you insight into the Blue Lab, where I'm up to. I'm just giving you insight that basically how two of the dance styles, major dance styles, were lost from Manchester, which were what they call ballet contemporary. I call it soul jazz, avant-garde, and Latin jazz. How it was lost was because people spread negatives about this art form, so a new generation didn't take it up. They took up fusion and they took up hip-hop, they took up house in '86, and what happened, an amazing dance was lost. These two dances were the most creative dance, and most importantly, they were two unique dances never seen before. The way that we move, the Latin jazz was totally different to the Latin jazz that had come before, and similar, but the soul jazz was never seen before, because what had happened in 1948, creative dance had been introduced into the society by Laban. Do you understand? And what happened, that creative dance got included into the mainstream education in 1960 was the first time the education system introduced self-expression and creative activities into the school system. Conservatives were outraged by it. Why should working class people get to know about the arts? Remember, Aristotle said music, art and literature raise your consciousness, and they didn't want the ordinary people's consciousness to get risen. So one of the things about UK jazz dance, it raised our consciousness and it raised other people's consciousness. And one of the things now you know, will not know, there's a lot of research showing you that jazz makes you smarter, dancing to it, listening to it. Jazz does quite a few things. It improves your social, physical, intellectual, cultural, emotional, spiritual life, political, economic, technological, environment, legal aspects of your life. If you study jazz, you'll learn so many lifelong lessons, and you'll learn something about humanitarian values. You'll learn about resistance, how people use jazz as a voice for themselves when they were not given a voice, and how hard people use this activity. People traveled and spread it around the world, yeah, and passing it on to other people. And most importantly, they didn't try to, how can I describe it? They didn't push that culture on others. They said, here's our culture. They presented it and said, find yourself in it. So anywhere you go in the world, you see there's Russian jazz. If you go, there's Polish jazz. There's American jazz, Anglo-Saxon American jazz. Do you understand? There's North, South, East, West Coast jazz. Yeah, there's British jazz. There's French jazz. There's European jazz. Do you understand what I'm saying? So me, Blue UK Jazz Dance is representing Blue UK Jazz Dance is relevant to my life. It's important that people understand. And as an individual, I'm flying solo, talking to individuals about this art form, what this art form did for me. As an individual, I never wanted to be a professional dancer, but that's how it went. Through the oppression that I faced, I decided that what happened, I faced oppression, I was stereotyped, I was labelled, I was told I was aggressive, I was fierce, and this art form was aggressive and fierce. And as an individual, because of that, what happened, I took it, decided I'm going to make a mission in my life to raise the prestigious art form and show people the beauties in it, and identify there's been lies, there's been deceit, and the deceit has been come about because people didn't want this art form to be known and the dancers to get recognition or make money from it. It was a business decision more than anything else, as well as discriminations. People need to have an understanding. The least people to write on this art form has been the dancers themselves, and I'm the first dancer to do what I'm doing, not only writing on it, creating videos. I'm an educator of dance. Professionally, people need to understand. And as I said, as an individual, I didn't expect to be a professional dancer. That's what I didn't expect to do. I expected at one point to be a professional teacher, later on be a professional educator, because dance education is about the whole person. It's not about people becoming dancers. It's about the education. What can dance to you do to you? It can enhance you socially, physically, intellectually, culturally, emotionally, spiritually. Spirit, mind and body, that's what it does. It prepares you for the world, gives you personal conditioning. It gives you personal development skills. It gives you positive mental attitude training, which how I used it in the beginning, because I wanted to be in the RAF as an RAF pilot. Do you understand? Officer pilot, which meant I had to be courageous, I had to be tough, I had to be quick in sense of doing examinations and everything. That is how I first used it. For people need to know how I used it. I used it as an activity to escape from the society, escape from the challenges I was having of special education needs, unknown, social anxiety, shyness. And I used it proactively to get rid of my shyness. I used it proactively to get rid of my social anxieties, because I didn't like to live in the way that I was living. I found myself paralyzed. And that's one of my legacies of my stories, to know how I was before as an individual, very, very quiet because of my special education needs, because I had speech impediment. People used to take the mickey out of me at the time, so I didn't want people to ridicule me, so I used to speak. I didn't play games, certain type of games, like any games to do with numbers, darts, I never used to play because you had to count, and I couldn't count in my head, so I used to avoid these games, you understand? But basically, what I want to share with people, I use this activity as a positive activity. Other people who had gone through what I had gone through had used negative activities development to develop myself. I didn't, and I was enhanced for that, and that's one of the things I talk about, and I passed it on to the individual. So one of the key things I saw the beauty in it. I realized that at 8 years old, I was asked, what can you tell me about, what you enjoy and love? And I said, I love dance. And I showed them my love of dance, and people were shocked because I did a one-man show, basically to do Swing Kid, and they developed it to call The Adventures of Swing Kid because I had more adventures. And people were shocked at my level of maturity, my level of performance skill, during performance and post-performance, and I went on to teach others. And through that, basically, I developed my self-leadership, my leadership of others, and then leadership of organizations, because organizations like my school asked me to represent them. Organizations like youth clubs asked me to represent them as a British representative of arts initiatives, because I created my own arts initiatives, about 40 different projects I created as part of my developing myself as a leader, to lead myself, to lead others, and lead organizations. And I'm very much about now at this point in my life, the Blue Lab, I'm showing people how you lead self, because people don't know what people do to lead themselves. They set up their labs. There has to be a place of study. There has to be a place that is a sanctuary to you as a person. So I'm giving you insight. This is my lab. This is how I set up my things in my home. These are my things. Do you know what I'm saying? So I have a number of key things. These are notes that I look at. Do you know what I'm saying? I buy certain types of books to do with jazz. This is important. One of the most important books that came out in 2010. Keeper of the Flame, Modern Jazz in Manchester, 1946 to 72. Now, there's another book that's come out to do with called War to Windrush, and basically it's talking about black women being in Britain. They've been excluded from the history. So part of my work is talking about UK jazz dance, that there was a lot of black women and women was involved in UK jazz dance, but because the macho DJs, the macho people have written, because of Eurocentric writing, DJs and publishers that have written, they've written women out deliberately in sense of marketing. So what I talk about today is the way I talk today about jazz is coming from a business perspective after a book I read by a guy called Frank Kosky, which was called Black Music, White Business, and it gives you understanding. And in the white business is black dance. They go together. Black music and black dance, they go together, and why people stopped individuals. And that goes back to talking about the Black and White Minstrel Show. People couldn't get jobs. Black dancers couldn't get jobs in Britain because the Black and White Minstrel Show was the number one light entertainment in Britain from 1830 to 1987. People got that. So much so people couldn't get no jobs. People got that. It's important for people to understand what I'm saying. So when you go back and look at Top of the Pops, what was really good is what Arlene Phillips had done. She got black dancers to be involved in jazz. But unfortunately, it was centuries coming from a sexual perspective. So people didn't get a really true account of what black dancers could do, except from a sensory perspective, because that's how they thought about us from slavery, that our dance was just sensory. It didn't have any substance behind it, like ballet or contemporary or modern. Do you understand? Which we were very much a large part of, and we've been very much a contributory factor to the innovation in ballet, innovation in modern, innovation in contemporary. We've been major contributors, and that's not been identified. I've done all them dances, modern, contemporary, and I've been an innovator in these art forms. But I realized that what I was as an individual, I was raised in the prestigious art form because there was a lot of stereotypes against males that did that. And what happened was, I did this, I was helping raise the prestige of the modern dances, the Western dances, and found that the individuals in them industries were dissing my UK jazz dance, which is unacceptable to me as an individual. And that's where the Blue Lab came in. I started to put together resources for individuals to know, this is what I'm involved in. I'm a dance model, I'm a dance educator, I'm a dance writer, I'm a dance poet, I'm a dance manager, I'm a dance leader. And leadership, I use it to teach generic leadership skills. Studying dance can give you knowledge about planning organizing, most importantly, self-care is one of the key things. So on the wall here, I gather information that I can share with individuals, which is important. Let me get that together. As an individual, I talk about the dance developed my personal health. The dance developed my emotional health and well-being as an individual. It developed my sport, athleticism, 100%. I became a better athlete as an individual. It developed my cross-cultural knowledge of spirituality, knowledge of how communities use dance to empower themselves, because that's what jazz did. It empowered individuals. It empowered people with knowledge, experience, and skills to get jobs as dancers and travel the world. So dancers self-taught themselves, boom, marketed themselves, got an agent, and left their countries and traveled. Like the Clark brothers left America and came here. Master Juba came here. And he was one of the few individuals, the father of jazz did that, came to Britain. But he was betrayed as an individual and he died early. But his legacy still lives with us today. His legacy with me as an individual. Because Master Juba was the first to fuse the different dance styles, the different cultures together and show that he did that. Yeah, he copied them, best Western master of the day, and he showed that he learned from them. And that gave people indication that you can innovate if you mix different cultures, art forms together, which he showed. As in their learning, their thinking, their development practices, which is what he showed, Master Juba. He mixed the jig dancers together, the best jig dancers dances, the best real dancers together, the best hornpipe dancers together, yeah. And then he mixed it with his own cultural dancing, which was a mixture of African, West Indian, African American, and he came up with a new dance. That's where jazz came from. Okay. Well, I did that as an individual, unbeknown that Juba existed. I found out about Juba around 1986, but I found a little bit about him about 1976. It was mentioned to me by the Dance Fair of Harlem. I didn't follow it up till later on in 1986. A book was written by a woman called Lynn Emery. That's when I realized that Master Juba, there's a poster of Master Juba being in Britain, in Manchester in 1848 in our library, the Rylands Library, and I went to see that as an individual, and I want to share that with individuals. Now, one of the key things I wanted to share with people, that what happened was dancing shapes you with expert skills to work with people. That's what it does as an individual. Yeah, it teaches you to have a positive mental attitude. It teaches you to have self-care is one of the most important things that dance teaches you. It teaches you to have a positive outlook. It teaches you that you're going to have competition. You're going to collaborate with people. So you have to have amazing people skills. And for me, I nurtured amazing people skills through dance in an organic way. And I loved that because I was a very shy person. I was very self-conscious 24/7. I was self-conscious about my dark skin because people used to curse that. Self-conscious about my nose, people used to curse that. Self-conscious about my ears, people used to curse that. I used to have flat feet, people used to curse that. Every part of me, people used to curse. So I wasn't a very, very happy person, was I? But then later on, through dancing, you get body confidence. That's what happens. And you're surprised how you start to feel good about yourself. So you realize dancing helps you feel good about yourself. So early this morning, it's early in the morning now actually, it's 6, and I got up at 3 o'clock this morning, 6 in the morning, 6:30. I got up early this morning to do what I needed to do, because what happens, I wake up and I dance now at this moment in time as part of my healing, to prevent certain key things happening, to prevent being overstressed when the day comes, in the day when everything's moving. As a person with dyslexia, I'm bombarded, I get information overload in my mind, and I have to put in this time as an individual to share information with you, because I'm writing a book. And that book, how I'm writing it, is I'm talking to my computer, and then I get someone to transcribe it, you understand? And then I'm going to put the book together that way. As an individual who's had blood poison, CO poison, I found that I couldn't write no more. I couldn't speak coherently. I couldn't listen. I couldn't understand coherently. And what helped bring that back was talking into my computer. So this is one of the things I would say to people who have brain damage and they find they have problems with speaking, or they've got slurred speech. You can change it by constantly just speaking. Have a subject that you want to talk about. Have something that's passionate. And I've got dance. Yeah, I've got a lab. Yeah, and I'm working on some key projects. This is a project. The project's called Rebirth for the Call. It's only a project I'm working on. Another project I'm working on, The Adventures of a Swing Kid. That's an amazing project that's really shaped itself to be something different. And one of the key things is dance and health is #1 thing for me at the moment. Has always been part of my life, I realized, and it came from my parents. My parents used dance for health, and my community used dance for health. My race used dance for health. I talk a lot about Cuba. as a dance because that's the number one dancing place. If you look there, you have the elder people and young people dancing together, and you find that that keeps them positive no matter what the circumstances, no matter the circumstances, impoverished or not. One thing that dance does, it keeps you positively thinking. Yeah, it keeps you optimistic, and when you dance with people, that is further enhanced because we are social animals, and it's important that we recognize that we're social animals. That means we need to engage in dancing, and I constantly have done that as a person who suffered from blood poisoning from 09 to 10 to 12, and then 012 I had CO poisoning, and then I went through a lot of key different type of illnesses because a lot of psychosomatic illnesses happen. You come with sort of illnesses. What made that worse is because I had dyslexia as well. So the challenges I had, I can't tell nobody, but dance brought me through because I'd done research. So when I talk about my project now, the rewards of basically setting up projects outside dance for myself has been a lot of rewards because that shaped my mind to think in a critical way, in a creative way, in a conceptual way, and it brought me back to be able to think coherently, speak coherently, listen and understand. Only now, in this year, 2019, I can pick up a book and now start to understand it again. I was at university from 05, 09, doing exceptionally well as a person with dyslexia. I just found that as I went into university. It was a struggle because I wish I had enough practice to be a person with dyslexia, have it for about 3 years, practicing to be in university because it's very hard to have dyslexia and go through the stereotypes, the prejudices, marginalisation. I went back to primary school. It was amazing at the age of 41. I went back to primary school. The first 6 years, what I went through is what I went through at university, except as an adult. But I documented it in a journal, and part of my Rebirth of the Call is important. I talk about that. And part of the Blue Lab was important because I took myself away from scrutiny in university to focus. Yeah, I found places in London where I went with my laptop. I spent a lot of time on my laptop away from the university because the university was on a healthy place for me as an individual, as a warden. And what I did every year to break stereotypes about being dyslexic, break stereotypes about being Jamaican, I raised my leadership prestige in university. I ended up being a warden for 2 years, and I got awarded an opportunity to be a warden for 3 years, passing self-appraisals. I was involved in self-assessment. I represented the university. I created a lot of projects around what is called student empowering student, artists empowering artists, students empowering community, community empowering students. I was involved in, I initiated these projects because the discriminations that people had, there's so much